So you may have so many questions for self-diagnosing yourself based on the diagnosis aspect that you may have, be it autism or some form of mental illness. You think, is it worth it? Is it safe to do so? Why do people self-diagnose themselves, or just what have you? And many questions. Also, in saying this, another question might pop up. Is it valid for getting an autistic diagnosis, especially within sometimes for the people in the community of mental health, get that self-diagnosis? These questions and more you'll have to watch and or listen to my coming up next, especially the one that is titled in this podcast video today. Before we begin this topic today, however, let me introduce to anyone who is new to the channel podcast today. I am Aspie Answers as your host. Aspie Answers on my podcast, YouTube channel, any other media that you may have seen me on. I am all about educating and advocating for others about mental health and autism, as well as navigating through life with autism and mental health, along with giving you all guidance of advice tips based on my lived experience with this. So please be considerate when it comes to my advice to either disagree or agree and vice versa. So basically, let's begin this of the background to the question at hand that I just sprung on you. As we know that most people that is around my age or even older, or even sometimes like at this point of time from when I've shared my diagnosis story, I was actually 16, even though boy oh boy, at the moment I'm a 34-year-old female autistic that is going on to 35 years old as of next year of April. Jeez, times fly. Correction, most of autistic people that are my age or older were diagnosed as children, as I'm sharing, and the reason for that is that most of the diagnosis stages of it all begins from when the child, especially known for males at that time, to be tested at the tender age of 2 years old. Even now it is more common, especially for us females, to be diagnosed when older due to the overlapping of some diagnoses, as well as some of our traits are to be known a bit more difficult to diagnose, as many of us are good at masking basically. Most of us will have noticed our autism one way or another later in life, and in my case I did share my diagnosis story journey, which you can watch about me to understand more of how it was like for me when it goes live sometimes. Sometimes it can be much later in life until it's too late for us to actually go see a medical professional to get diagnosed, or them to diagnose us. And then also it is the other factors to consider when we do get a diagnosis, as well as shared so many times in the last few videos and podcasts, that obviously I'll briefly overview that as the reasons for it is the cost of the diagnosis, as well as the time put in, cost of travel and treatments basically, versus also the series of tests of questions we have to go through, and so much more, which again, more of that will be listed above me in the description box below me once this video again goes live. So the real big question for many of us is maybe stems from for us to sense that we are different from others, or we didn't seem to fit in a sector basically, right? Would be doing our own research, self-discovery, that epiphany or an aha moment, if you want to call this, and doing the investigation to the matter is that we may say to ourselves, I'm starting to think maybe I am on the spectrum. And again, that question we ask ourselves, do I really want to seek that official autistic diagnosis or not? Some people may make a decision on their own that they may decide to know or understand that diagnosis in itself doesn't quite make sense to us, as it feels so alienating or nerve-wracking, or causing some confusion and misunderstanding on ourselves based on the behaviours and the way of thinking on of us, of what we do. So this is called self-identified. That means from the dictionary from Cambridge.org defines it as to believe that you are a particular kind of person, especially when other people don't think that you are that kind of person. Or in another sense, from my research of Merriam-Webster dictionary, would define this as an identification with someone or something outside oneself. And on the other hand, they may see it as self-diagnose, which self-diagnose is as actually just diagnosing by yourself a condition or susceptible disability or disability without the medical professional. Again, there have been a lot of cases where people have done this, self-diagnosing themselves, as it can be done and have been done with many different conditions. There have been a lot of people that may have diagnosed themselves something in their lives without realizing it. The common example I'll share with you again is the common cold or flu. Self-diagnosis is a part of being acceptable in someone's life on an everyday basis, as due to the lack of recognition that is being part of acceptable and being deemed as normal in today's society and world around it. Autism self-diagnosis, however, in itself means just that, and that meaning to many that are already autistic to be getting educated about autism, doing their own research and their own learning, and possibly talking to other autistics about their lived experiences with autism. All of that information being said, being researched and gathered, needs to be thorough and deeply researched of the information of one uses to self-diagnose, be by a trusted and reliable source. I'll be sharing in the next series about question to self-diagnosis, is it right soon, or in this case it will hopefully be live once this one's done on my podcast sort of thing, so you can hopefully listen to the answer while I'm sharing on this with you guys. But the really big question here again is that why that people may be thinking to themselves or asking to themselves is that when that official autistic diagnosis, or again, any type of diagnosis for that matter, is it valid? What does it mean? It is what I hope to break down during my topic today to share with you all. Self-diagnosis is often a taboo thing in the medical field. We are encouraged to shy away from diagnosing ourselves of quick internet searches and checklists that may be provided for us, and some of those ain't always accurate, to be sad and honest with you. But what happens when getting a proper diagnosis isn't possible? So let's get straight into the very first part of the topic and break it down into a systematic approach again by answering questions about what does valid really mean. And again, as you know, I'm all about systems and stuff and putting it in order. So valid is defined again by Merriam-Webster, from what I've researched, is that one, having legal efficacy or force, especially executed with the proper legal authority and formality. Valid contract, maybe. 2, A, is a well-grounded or justifiable, being at once relevant and meaningful theory, and B, logically correct, valid argument, valid indifference. Or on the other hand, the Cambridge Dictionary again that I've researched from is based on truth or reason, able to be accepted, a valid argument, criticism or reason. My way of thinking might be different from yours, but it's equally valid here, just to bear in mind. You will need to also think about this in retrospect, what your purpose of wanting the diagnosis for. There are many reasons for this, for many people to actually want that self-diagnosis or diagnosis in themselves. So for example, for getting the self-diagnosis done, basically, number 1 is maybe you want that official diagnosis being autistic, so that when you apply for certain things and then being asked for your formal diagnosis, disability or mental illnesses for that matter, they can cite it as your own diagnosis. Or even if you're applying for jobs, in some cases, sometimes, not always, they may ask you about it themselves on the forms too, or even in doctors, schools or wherever, to get that special professional help, services and accommodations that you will need or require after receiving that official diagnosis. 2, getting it yourself so that you can then self-educate, self-understand more about yourself and the behaviors to why you're acting a certain way was explained, coming to that understanding of who and what you are as a person besides that diagnosis, creating a life story for yourself of who and what you are behind the diagnosis, and maybe being able to share with others about your diagnosis. 3, getting a self-diagnosis of wanting one is to help explain to others about it and actually to create an awareness and understand for others to know what is it that you're going through, so that they can be self-aware and hope be more understanding and accepting of you. 4, question is that we sometimes ask ourselves is how can we tell others about ourselves having autism that isn't always accurate as they are, assuming that they may know what to do to help us in some situations that we may face or challenge, but then again may come off as not helping at all and might do more harm than good, obviously. Connecting with others on the autism spectrum, either that we connect with others that are online or even in some communities that we are in to socialize and interact with them by either chatting away or by being able to get to know them as well, building up, making friends and connections outside our circle. Some of what was mentioned may require a formal full diagnosis just to be recognized, and for example, to gain that better understanding is that if you go into some places that requires ID and that you will need to introduce yourself and produce these documentations they are asking from you, is always important to be sure to be prepped and ready to provide that right documents so that you can get the right support and assistance from them. But if you are meeting someone for the first time, as a classic example, you can just introduce yourself as, hi, my name is X, which in this case may be more than enough, as you don't have to go into such a tangent about your diagnosis, as it may put them off speaking to you or not even wanting to speak to you at all after your first meetup. I've spoken about how to share with others into explaining yourself having autism somewhere in one of my videos, which I'll hopefully link in the iCard and in the description box below me once this video goes live. But again, I'll share this will depend on the purpose at the end of the day, and sometimes another reason to why people who may already have the official diagnosis or even about to go and get one, that they can prove it to others, as well as also having something that they have fully signed off by the doctors or medical specialists that they can then show as proof that we are not being labelled as, I don't want to have these labels, but this is due to my research, crazy, dumb, and many other labels that can actually do more harm than good. Sometimes then, with that being said, we can go on our own to actually get the certificate to then acknowledge to others that we were right after seeking the diagnosis, that it is being confirmed that yes, I have autism. Please listen to me, what I am sharing with you right now. Please understand me and please take me seriously, as we know that sometimes with having the paper it would never be enough for some of our family and friends, or even the workplaces that we're working for or with, or about to apply at certain workforces. However, on the other hand, inside the autistic community, no one has ever asked for a single piece of paper, as sometimes some of the groups may have some questions to ask you before you join the group about it. It's something that they won't do. It will most likely cause so much stress and or other mixed emotions for us and also to them. Explain my diagnosis. Well, the experience of my diagnosis basically, as I shared, based on making friends, and that has been hard when I was growing up. I struggled to find some community groups that sometimes some autistics and some groups online weren't even welcoming at all when I first found out about my diagnosis, especially after joining on Facebook and other groups outside of Facebook. Some were really nasty. Some of them I felt basically, they should be able to accept the differences of opinions. I've been slapped down a few times about what I've been saying is wrong, and that they've been at me saying you should know by now that these ain't the words we're using it. I humbly apologize in advance to those ones I'm in the autistic community, because again, as I said, that everybody's learning and that sometimes we can agree to disagree or agree to disagree on certain grounds and hopefully come into the middle somewhere to meet. Some were welcoming of the groups, yet it has, like I said, it was harder, especially to find the right people or tribe in that local community groups of mine, which I think to some of the ones that actually are accepting of me, of actually also feeling really happy that some of the ones I've been getting to know also that ain't autistic, learning their differences of their different disabilities of what life is like for them as well. Some people may need an external validation. Sometimes we have a connection with some people in the autistic people, community, and that we can become more valid when we again build up some trust communication with others that are with that diagnosis to understand each other and getting to know them and more. We need to some degree of external validation, I believe, as we don't need a professional diagnosis all the time, and that sometimes this will again depend on that very purpose and circumstance and situation that we're in. So my advice here is focus on self-awareness, self-knowledge, self-understanding, all of this process that we go through based on our diagnosing journey. So get to know yourself more, in other words, all about you. Meet others on the spectrum and connect with others based on having autism. Self-awareness and self-acceptance is important for us all. Identity is there for ourselves, is crucial to get the accommodations, support and more if we want it or not. I also made a few videos based on how to get the diagnosis before the autism or something around that topic, which again I'll link again into this as well as some other ones will come into full circle. So the question is basically, are we valid? Yes, this is valid, we are valid, so is our diagnosis as well. Basically, we are special and unique. So this quickly ends a real short video, is self-diagnosis valid. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Stay tuned for more of my videos and podcasting recordings, and I'll be back with you shortly.
Just before I go, I want to say a quick thank you to Aspie for being a long-time patron on Patreon, and if you want to find out more about Patreon, I'll flick over to the next message over of my podcast right now to clarify what it's all about for you, and I'll be back with you shortly, hopefully in my next few pieces along with all this diagnosing versus self-diagnosing series. Stay tuned.
So the main part of this video I want to quickly hopefully address, if I can aim to finish today, is what is Patreon? You may be asking me. Patreon is a service or a membership platform for content creators like me that are creating vlogs or music vlogs or whatever form of outlet that they're doing, sort of thing, to pay a monthly fee towards as you guys decide to become a patron on board, sort of thing, to hopefully work towards anything that we want to do, be it behind the scenes, exclusive videos, what have you, live videos and whatever it may be. My sort of reason for you want to support me is just based on what I shared with you, is to educate and navigate through life with autism and mental health, along with also mentoring, supporting you and the like, as I said earlier. Also, I've been saying this with the Patreon, you get certain tiers based on a certain amount that we decide to put in, and within those tiers I will have certain things that will hopefully correlate, so to speak. So when you pledge to me, this will cover, obviously, for what it will cover either the cost of my rent or backup supplies of my future endeavours of what I'm doing right now that I'm going to share more of in the next video, which is my website creation versus my designs and some equipment I might need if I do create it as a business from home, instead of via through a spreadsheet, if you've seen those. That some of those might be in my home business. Haven't decided yet, but again, this will be addressed in my video. Another cost that will cover, basically, it will be my recording equipment via through doing vlogs or even more on my podcast, as well as in saying this, maybe in the future for that equipment, it could be maybe a new PC that I'm dying to need, as well as a new cell phone and whatever, as well as I'm saying that cover the cost of travel if I need to do some through my training in educational purposes of becoming an advocate, support person or what have you in future to upskill my training if need actually be, because I've noticed that obviously in some places we need to actually, train instead of having our lived experiences to be actually shown that we can do the work. And also from saying this, it will cover the cost of my merch creations versus also fire through the merch if I, have a certain amount that I decided that some of the percentage will go towards either one, to schools locally around New Zealand where I am in the middle, to maybe put forward to education specialists or what have you, to gain a better understanding about autism, especially where I wanted to do it, and also in saying this, maybe to create an educational program or some sort of program and create resources that is valuable to people to know about autism and so on and so forth. And also in saying this, maybe just cover the cost for certain medical specialists. That's where hopefully all the funding will go. As you know, there is always has been a continuation of change, hence why on YouTube it is harder these days to monetize, obviously due to the monetization process versus their analytics and everything else behind the scenes. So many of us content creators at this point in time are trying to find solutions to raise our own funds and do what we love to do the continuation work of what we do, regardless if it's music, what I'm doing right now as well. So in other words, also to end this, feel free to check my blogs and everywhere else to support me anyway, big or small. If you want to become a patron today, that is really good. If not, I'm not going to be disheartened. It's up to you at the end of the day if you really want to support my projects and causes that I'm doing. Saying this, basically, as we know that this is important to me, obviously, to raise awareness and understanding about autism and mental health, especially again with the spectrum of autism, because obviously many of us statistics just feel that we need to be accepted, because we feel like many of us will get rejected by our peers by the misunderstandings, misgivings about autism. So hence why I'm trying to stand out like a sore thumb somewhere as an advocate, a voice for you all, regardless of what it may be. So that also in saying this, basically, I'm hoping with the content that I'm creating with you all, with the amount you pledge every month, that will go towards that and many other projects in the works later on, and make better content for you all, regardless of it all, as well as in saying this, to gain a better confidence level for myself, or in myself, and what I want to strive and achieve for, which is what I keep saying about, raising awareness and understanding. By supporting my cause and my channel and either the future projects or what have you, regardless where you'll find me, I believe wholeheartedly we'll work together to break the stigma and stereotyping of autism and mental health, as well as just removing or reminding you guys that autism isn't a disability but a different ability, as well as continuing to educate you all while navigating through life with autism and mental health. Create a better life as well for myself and others around me by supporting all. So just a quick shout out of the very first patron that has been my lifetime member is my Moise. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing the name right. Correct me if I'm wrong. This person is watching today. I appreciate this very much, and hopefully within saying this, that some of the, like I said, pieces of funds will go towards my future works of what I have to do. And also to everyone that I have been associating with from the very beginning of my vlogging journey right through to now, I appreciate wholeheartedly with some of your support. I know I have been having a lot of naysayers along the way of what's been said about what I can and can't do, and that I have proved them wrong, obviously. And in saying this, based on this, your support, love and guidance means a lot, and that I wouldn't know where I'll be today with some of you that are still with me today, regardless what it may be.